Oh, I didn't see you there. But this is it, such as it looks like. So, welcome. Today we're going to talk about the misplaced position in my lousy camera. I try to use the plug-in again, but YouTube refuses to recognize it, so this is what we're going to look at today. So take your glasses off. Doesn't make any difference. Well, welcome to my office. Behind me is this. Nope, this way. This is my newest banner. It's kind of fun. It's got. You see the top there? This is the Daily Chronicle. That is actually a page of the Daily Chronicle from 1896. Yeah, no, it was an 86. 1886. Excuse me. That is a year before the A Study in Scarlet was published, and it was a bomb. It was not in the Strand magazine. It was in Beaton's Christmas issue. It's kind of a magazine, and it didn't. Everybody kind of said, eh. But it wasn't until more short stories were published that people started taking interest. So, 1886. That's pretty cool. Just two blokes trying to be detectives like Sherlock Holmes. So, there they are. Now, and it always happens that I lose my voice as I'm trying to do this stuff. But we are going to do several things today. Let's get some welcome to those who are showing up there in our chat area. And I hope more of you do show up for that. But let's talk about what we're going to do. I'm going to do a few things. I'm going to do a presentation. I'm going to do a reading. In between, we're going to do some giveaways. And let's look at those giveaways. One of them is this thing right here. This is an acrylic, looks like a book, clear acrylic vase, or whatever you want to put in it. It's kind of big, so you can put water and flowers and things like that in there. So that's one thing. Another thing is this. And this is very soft and cuddly. You're going to want this. And when it sits on the side here, I keep thinking it's the cat. Although she is here. She's sitting in her bed. Or you can win one of these. See if I can get a good close-up. And there, it's the Sherlockian badger. Yep. Here we go. Everything is backwards on this. Front ways. So there he is. A badger. So you can win one of those, and the way to do it is when I tell you that we're going to start giving away the vase, then what you do is go to jerrywesterson@gmail.com and say vase, and I want to win it. That's it. That's all you got to do, and then I will use my special counter, random number counter, and I'll pick a winner from that if more people do show up, unless Jody wants to win all the prizes, and I'm sure she does. So that's cool too. So we will begin talking about this right now. Let me put my stuff out of the way. All right. This is the third book in the series, by the way. Third book. And we've already got, I've already got the fourth book written. It's mostly edited, but it's almost finished. And then that will release in May of 2026. So it's going to be a while. Yeah, you would not mind winning all the games. You might. I don't see any other names, but there you go. So we have the fourth one, The Vampire Client. And that's a fun one. By the way, I've been listening to the Misplaced Physician audiobook, and it's a lot of fun. Noah James Butler is narrating that, performing it. So I do recommend that one highly to you. And it's a fun one. And it'll hopefully keep you until next year. We've got a whole other year to release the next one. So we're gonna have our little talk. And we are going to begin in one of the fun things about writing these books is talking about the technology and the little details and the things that everyday people did. Now, we are contemporary people, are modern, quote unquote, modern people. So we all know about cell phones. And the older people, the elders of us, elders, I suppose we could be called, the wise elders, the crones. We remember a time where you could find a telephone booth. And nobody knows what those are anymore because there aren't any. Like very rarely you'll find one somewhere. Maybe in a bus station, maybe in a train station. But no, everybody has cell phones, so there's no need for a phone booth. But when you write about something in the past, you've got to know those things. You got to figure them out. You got to know when phone booths were these full phone booths, close the door kind of. When they became half phone booths where there were no doors, you were not enclosed at all. How much they were, when the prices went up. So these are all the little things that we just take for granted. Unlike like the Richard II recipe book, cookbook. It doesn't have things like medieval meatloaf recipes in it because everybody knew how to cook those things. It has just the fancier recipes. So if nobody wrote down medieval meatloaf, it would have to be reinvented at some other point. But there were lots of things that they did in this time period and nobody else did later that needs to be re-explored. And well, in this story, you might have heard, Dr. Watson is kidnapped. And Holmes is out of the country and can't be reached. So it's up to Badger and Watson to rescue him. Or else, if they can't find Dr. Watson to save, then game over. They have no detective agency anymore. So they must do this. And one of the things I just talked about in a podcast interview was mail was delivered 12 times a day in London. 12 times a day is better than email, pretty much. So you could send a ransom note in the morning, send further instructions an hour or two later, have the drop, and if the drop went wrong, you can come back in 2 hours and berate them in a letter. So it's pretty handy, right? Especially for ransom notes. But, which, by the way, ransom notes are the only kind of writing that make you money. So I got to try that one of these days. But anyway, let's talk about all the little things, little things that that you need to know. If you were in 1895, London, you would have to have your Bradshaw. That's not a butler, but it's a good name for a butler. What it is a compendium of all the rail schedules and prices for England and Ireland. So you can go, well, gee, I need to go to this city. How long is it going to take to get there? What's it going to cost? You look it up, and then you can go to whichever train station and get ready to go. So this was important. And in the Holmes stories, like in Doyle stories, Holmes is always saying, Watson, grab your Bradshaw. We need to go to the railway station. So that's something that Badger and Watson don't know about because they were too poor to ever take the train. They were too poor to take a handsome cab ride. Maybe every now and then they could hop on an omnibus, but otherwise they were hoofing it everywhere. But now they have responsibilities, they have this job of investigation, and so they need to broaden their horizons. And in this story, they get to, where is it? There it is. In this story, they get to take the train a couple of times. So and Miss Littleton helps them out because she's got a lot of experience traveling to her country estates when she used to have them, her family. So, railroads, I think we take them for granted. I don't know how many of you have taken a train before anywhere, but I have in Europe, where they're everywhere, and it's a good way to travel from city to city. And in this country, we need to have rail like that again, that we can just take anywhere, more than an airplane. Because, it's more relaxed. You get up and walk around. You can look at things. You can do your work, if you had a little compartment or whatever. So railroads were kind of important, and they were invented in England. So we will talk about that. But first, let us go back in time, way back in time. Technology really hadn't changed much from ancient Egypt to medieval Europe. We're talking about you light and heat your homes with fire, just fire in a hearth or in a circle in the middle of your floor or something like that. You light your house with rushlights, with candles, with oil lamps. None of that was changing, until the Industrial Revolution. We'll talk about that in a second. In the ancient world, there are wheels, and they learn to use them in various ways, not just in a cart or a chariot or a wagon, but they use them for moving things around. For instance, in ancient Egypt, you would use a wheel, a water wheel, a big one that you could walk in. So you're using it like a treadmill. You're walking in it, and it's turning the wheel, and it's picking up the water, and it's taking it high because the Nile sometimes was too low to flood your fields, and you needed to bring the water up to the shore. So they understood that. Fast forward to the Middle Ages, and now you're using the same kind of wheels that you walk in, and you're building cathedrals with them because these wheels are the engine of cranes that are picking up huge, heavy pieces of stone and bringing them up higher as you're building your cathedral higher and higher. So wheels are being used for all of these things. And wheels are being used also for something called a grist mill. Let's see if you can see this. If I can make this picture come alive for you. Here we go. There. Okay. So over here is an illustration, which you can't see very well, but there it is, of in a old manuscript, a medieval manuscript of a grist mill. And what's a grist mill? It's a place to mill flour. So this is more of an illustration of what that is. So here's your water wheel. Now the mill stream is running past. So when you put the wheel in here and it's got paddles on it, the stream moves the paddles. So this wheel is turning. It's turning. And as it's turning, it's got also connected to a shaft in the middle of it. There's the shaft, and that which is connected to another. You see this other wheel? That's a gear. It's got cogs in it, and that's connected to that horizontal cog wheel, and that's got a shaft on it. There it is. That's got a wrong place. That's got a shaft on it, and it's going to the millstones. So what happens is you've got cogwheels. They understood that. Wheels with teeth. And when one wheel's turning, it's turning the other one. So it's if that mill wheel is connected to another cogwheel, it's turning like this, and a shaft, it's turning that. It's turning it this way. The millstones are there. All the wheat, the little buds of wheat, are going down, getting dropped down into where the mill wheel is, and as long as the stream is running, you're going to be grinding that flour, and that's going to fall below in the flour into places to collect it in sacks. Now this is darned clever. You are harnessing the power of water, of moving water, with these wheels. Just wheels with teeth, gears. And it's very clever because this is at a time now where monks and nuns need to know what time it is. They need to know what time it is. Why? Because they have different prayers they have to pray during the day. There's this one in the morning, this one in the late morning, this one at noon, this one in the afternoon, and so on and so forth. And they've been trying to find a way to make a clock, some way to tell time. Now they made candles where they marked on the candle the different hours. And as the candle burned down, it would hit 1 hour, 2 hours, 3. But somebody has to watch that candle and not fall asleep and go, oh, everybody, it's time, and ring the bell to bring all the monks and nuns. But none of these were great. And of course, you have an hourglass. Same thing. Somebody has to watch the sand, and right before it runs out, have to turn it over and then mark the time and all that. So somebody got the bright idea to find to these cogwheels that they saw in the construction of cathedrals and in these grist mills, to make them do something different. They were going to make clocks, because they saw that these things can move at a certain rate. And especially when you added something called an escapement. An escapement is a little hook that catches the teeth in the cogwheels. 1, 2, 3. And you have weights and governors, and the weights and the winding spring is basically your governor. But you see a cuckoo clock, right? And the things hanging down that look like long pine cones, those are the weights. And those you pull those down because that's winding the clock. Other clocks you have a key that you wind the winding spring. It's just a big old spiral of a metal spring. And when you wind it, you're making it tighter and tighter and tighter. And then as the days go by, because most of these are like week-long clocks, those get looser. The winding spring gets looser and looser and looser until it can't hold time. But anyway, the escapement makes the clock regular. You need that regular time. That's a thing also that goes tick, tick, tick. I don't know about the talk. You'll have to ask the clock about that. So clocks were invented. 1200s, I think, was the first clock. It was a big clock in Westminster, Palace. But they started to get better and better, making these smaller gears and such. But as time goes by, now we're into the 1700s. 1760 was about the time of the Industrial Revolution. And they were looking at these wheels. And they thought, we have water wheels. That's great. We have windmills. That's great. Because windmills were also grist mills. It was a way to harness the wind to do a job for you. What if these wheels could do bigger things that we really need a lot of energy to do? Well, that was steam power. And let's see if we can show this one. Okay. So right here, whoa. This is a steam engine. What you do is you fill a metal cylinder with water and you heat that up. And that's got a little, if you see a little piston in it. That's the cylinder is sealed. The water can't get out. And once water is heated, what happens? It produces steam. And if you can't let that steam out, well, that thing's going to blow up. But you do allow it to get out in this little shaft that goes into the cylinder with the water, with the boiling water. So the steam moves that shaft up, and that becomes a piston. So that it moves it up, falls back. Moves it up, falls back. Move it up, falls back. And that piston is attached to an arm. And when that piston goes up, the arm goes up. Okay? And what's attached to the arm is another arm that's attached to a wheel. And when that arm goes up and down and that other arm goes up and down, it's turning a wheel. And now you have steam power because now you have a wheel. And you can attach that wheel to lots of belts. See that? All those wheels and belts are attached to another shaft where the steam engine is turning it. And now you have looms. You have all these looms that are turning without a lot of people. Yeah, kids are still working there and getting hurt. What's a good factory? What's a good Victorian factory without kids dying in a factory? But they're harnessing steam power, and it's heated by coal, which they don't realize is polluting the atmosphere. But that's another story. But finally, you have this other idea. Called a train. And the train, you can see the engine of the train is simply a boiler and something to boil the water with, and your fuel is coal. And you have pistons that where the steam is released. They go up and down, and they're attached to those drive wheels. They go up and down, and that makes them turn. And the smokestack is just where the fire from the coal is burning. Now, this is the first train and the first railway. It's the Darlington and Stockton Railway in 1825. And this is a picture of a little collector's card that you get in your cigarettes. This is before baseball cards, so you just got pictures of trains. But this train only had one function, and it was to carry coal. Here's the coal. These are all coal cars. And it was to carry coal from the coal mine. So the coal mine is, you're mining the coal in one place, but you got to get it to the rest of the country at another place. So they invented this coal train. That's what coal train. Huh, what a great name. And of course, you already have the tracks and you already have the coal cars because you're mining it deep in the earth and they're pushing them back out into the surface on these cars. So they have this train that takes the coal to the coast, and then the coal is loaded on ships, and those ships go all over the country, all around the island of England, and delivering the coal that we need for everything, heating and cooking and all this other industry that is developing. Now, when the empty cars came back, the people who worked in the coal mine lived outside the mine area. So they saw these empty coal cars go back and they go, hey, wait a minute. Can we hitch a ride to work? And the driver says, sure, hop in the cars. It's dirty, but you're going to get dirty mining coal anyway. So you're standing up. There's no seats because it's made for coal. So they go to work. And this happened for a while until the mine owner said, why don't we start charging the employees to ride on this train? Pure capitalism. Yeah. And they did, like the capitalists they are. And it wasn't long until they get the different rich guys get the bright idea that, hey, wait a minute. What if we built a network of railways? Because people may want to ride in this and go from the country to the city to the country and see different sites. And so that's what they did. I don't know if you're going to be able to see this. It's much easier when I do a presentation in person. See if I can get a little closer. Okay, basically, you see that? The same coal cars, but there's people all dressed up in them. I have to assume they clean them because these are for travel only. So they started building all of these, and it was the biggest engineering project in British history, akin to building the pyramids, when they started building these networks of railways. By 1845, see these fellows? These are the navvies, they called them, that built the railroad. They laid 3,000 miles of track and all the ballast that has to be between the sleepers, that's the railroad ties. And all of this stuff is happening. 250,000 navvies were working to do this. So it's pretty amazing that this is going on. And it's all happening so quick. Once you have a little bit of technology, you find all different ways to use it. And it just accelerates. I mean, if you think about from Kitty Hawk to walking on the moon, that was only 60 years. Incredible technology had to be created and expanded for that. But this is just for a railway. Lots of them. But by 1844, there were 104 privately owned railroads. And so the government decided, well, we got to step in. And it became the 1844 Regulations of Railroads Act because they needed to regulate its reliability, its safety, and pricing. Because you got these different guys running these railroads, and reliability, it's going to leave any minute now. So if you're relying on something to be at the right time, it's not going to happen. Safety, so what if a bolt is missing from the boiler? You can imagine. And pricing, because they just priced any old which way they wanted. So the government said, this is now a technology that is very important to our economy. And in fact, people from the country whose farms failed, farming is regulated by the weather. So if you're ready to harvest everything, if you're going to harvest your hay the next day and it rains the night before, it's ruined. You've lost your crop. You're bankrupt. And a lot of these people they didn't even own their farms. These are all tenant farmers for generations, hundreds of years probably. And so they left their farms, took the train to the city to work, and they doubled the population of London. Can you imagine? Doubled the population of London. And that's why there was such incredible poverty and crowding. And oh my God, you can't even breathe from all the coal, right? So this is all happening. So finally, you've got the regulations the government imposed. Let's see, where is it? It's right here. Those are now the carriages. You're not in the open air anymore. The government said, no, that's not fair. Don't put people in open air. Cover them, enclose them. So they made these railway carriages. This is a better picture. You can see this. This is a better picture of what they look like. It's a carriage. These are compartments. There's 3 compartments in this. Now, do you see a problem with this? There's 3 compartments. You can only get in them by these doors, the front doors. You can't get into the other compartments on this carriage unless you stopped at the train station, got out, and got into the other one through their front door. So there's a problem, because how do you get to the toilet? Well, they didn't even have one until 1881. 40 years until they put a toilet on a train. Man, they could just sort of hang by the window, I guess. But women, well, they had these special catalogs you can order from. They were discreet catalogs. And there were items where it had a cup and a hose attached to a bag that you strapped to your leg under your skirt. So if you look particularly pensive looking out the window, nobody would know what you're doing. So, yeah. What did they have to create? Corridors. Corridors. Seems like a simple thing. So, on one side of your corridor is the compartments, like you used to see right there. And you can get in and out of it from the trail, the platform, from the outside. But you got a corridor so you could get to this wonderful toilet. Look at that. It looks a little scary, doesn't it? Kind of looks like a dental chair. A little scary to use. Anyway, okay. It still looks like just you, Jody. Interesting. Okay. Well, guess what? Now we have a quiz. This will be fun. Are you ready? It's a Sherlockian quiz. Let's see if you can see this. There we go. Question number 1. Which of the following were hats that Sherlock wore in the stories? A deerstalker, B, a Homburg, C, a topper, or D, a bowler? What is the answer to that question? Well, anyway, we'll move along. The answer is none. But he obviously wore hats, but they weren't mentioned in the books. So he probably wore a Homburg, a topper, and a bowler for different occasions. But he probably never wore a deerstalker. And so why do we think he did? Well, there's a reason for that. Let's see. All right. See this famous illustration? That's by Sidney Paget. And Sidney Paget owned a deerstalker. And in this story, the story that is illustrated here is Silver Blaze. It's the one about the horse that's missing. And in it, Doyle writes that Holmes is wearing an ear-flapped traveling cap. And everybody assumes Well, Paget did, that it was a deerstalker because he had one. Because there's flaps on the top of that. There's a little bow on top. You untie it, and the flaps come down. Well, really, probably what Doyle was talking about was this. It's a flat cap. Everybody had them. Some had these little ear flaps that tucked up inside when you didn't need them and came down when you did. So it's been a mistake all these years. Okay, you know what? Time to give something away because we're half an hour in. So let's give away this dandy little thing, the acrylic book-shaped, shaped like a book, open at the top, where you can put flowers and stuff. Oh, it's at the vase. So tell me in an email to jerrywesterson@gmail.com if you would like that. And after this is all over, I will pick the winners and you'll find out. I wonder who will win. Oh, there's Laura. Hello, Laura. She's here. So that's 2 people. 2 out of 3. That ain't bad. All right, how about question number 2? Question number 2. Let's see how clever you are. Question number 2. Okay. What was Dr. Watson's wife's name? Yes, he had a wife. He possibly had 2, but he had one of these. Was it A, Irene Adler? Was it B, Mary Morstan? Was it C, Violet Hunter? Or was it D, Betty White? Okay, did you choose your name? Well, it was B, Mary Marston. And we met her in the Sign of the Four. Now, Irene Adler, as you know, was in a scandal in Bohemia and the perfect foil for Holmes. She was the only woman, possibly the only person, who ever bested him, who foiled him. So that's why ever since, Holmes, when referring to her, always called her the woman. Either he said the woman because he admired her, or the woman because he hated the fact that she foiled his plans. But anyway, Violet Hunter we met in the Copper Beeches, and that's the unemployed governess who had beautiful auburn hair. And she was chosen for her beautiful auburn hair for a great job, great pay, but she had to cut it. She had to cut her hair short. She didn't know if that was not a deal, so she went to Sherlock Holmes to ask, "What is this? Is this a scam?" And he says, "Well, I don't know. It sounds weird to me. That's up to you." But later, Holmes said, "I think something's fishy, and we're going to go down and see if she's okay." So, and of course, Betty White, she's not that old. Give her a break. Okay, question number 3. Number 3, it's about Scotland Yard detectives. Which one was a Scotland Yard detective? Was it A, Gregson? Was it B, Hopkins? Was it C, Lestrade? Or was it D, Clouseau? Well, you're thinking Lestrade, aren't you? And it's Lestrade, not Lestrade, because Doyle's granddaughter said, "Oh no," he always pronounced it Lestrade, just like it's spelled, actually. So it's Gregson, Hopkins, and Lestrade. Now, I use Hopkins in my books because he was the one that tried to follow Holmes's method, and Holmes really liked that. But Holmes said of some of them, Gregson is the smartest of the Scotland Yarders, Holmes tells Watson. He and Lestrade are the pick of a bad lot. They are both quick and energetic, but conventional, shockingly so. Talk about your left-handed compliments. And Stanley Hopkins, a promising detective in whose career Holmes had several times shown a very practical interest. But he was also disappointed by him a couple of times. But come on, give him a break. He's trying to do the method. Not everybody can. So Hopkins was in The Adventures of Black Peter, The Adventure of the Golden Pince-Nez, The Adventure of the Missing Three-Quarter, well, he was only mentioned in that, The Adventure of the Abbey Grange, and Gregson was in A Study in Scarlet, The Adventure of the Greek Interpreter, The Adventure of Wisteria Lodge, and The Adventure of the Red Circle. And Lestrade is in Too Many to Mention. And Clouseau was in the Pink Panther. French and in the Pink Panther. So, okay, you know what? Let's give away something else. This little cuddly badger. You will not want to stop petting this, I'm telling you. You will cuddle in bed with this. I'm not kidding. This is just the sweetest little guy. There he is. He's a nice British badger. So he just likes to have tea with you. He doesn't want to eat you. So just, you know what to do. Go to jerrywesterson@gmail.com. Go now and say you would like the cuddly badger. Cuddly badger. I think Tim Badger is awfully cuddly too. But let's move on to question number 4. Question number 4. All right. Question. What form of martial arts did Holmes use in the stories? It was actually mentioned in The Adventure of the Empty House in 1903 when Holmes came back to life. Is it A, everybody was kung fu fighting? Or, because it's fun to sing, but or was it B, wax on, wax off karate? Or was it C, jujitsu? Or was it C, bartitsu? Well, which was it? I know what you're going to say. It's not. It's D, bartitsu. Now, Doyle spelled it wrong in The Adventure of the Empty House. He spelled it as baritsu, because that makes sense. Jojitsu, baritsu. Or maybe he didn't want to spell tit, bartitsu, but this is what it is. And the middle guy in the middle with the astounding mustache is the one who invented this form of fighting. It's created by Edward William Barton Wright. He was a British engineer and physical fitness enthusiast. Basically, he took a bunch of different disciplines, boxing, judo, cane fighting. He's up here fighting with the cane there. And this down here with the coat. You throw your coat on the guy. You put all these together into kind of a gentleman's sort of way of fighting and defending yourself. Because you don't want to be brawling in the street like a commoner. You want to do something with your cane and your coat, throwing it over your enemy or over his fists, and dragging him to the ground and saying, "Ta-da! I won." So anyway, that's all that information that you're glad you have now. And while in this time, let me try to read this with my scary voice I keep having problems with. Now, as I said, Badger and Watson are trying to find Dr. Watson to rescue him. And they have to take the train to do that. And they took the train twice. And the second time, you will see. "Mr. Watson," Miss Littleton whispered, "what are we doing?" "Well, miss, it seems we have no option. We are going to borrow this locomotive." "We're going to what?" hissed Badger. "It is Mr. Watson's intention to steal this train," Miss Littleton explained. "It isn't a train," breathed Ben. "It's a locomotive. We don't want the train, only the engine and the tender." Ben, said Badger carefully, you feeling all right? Because we can't steal a train or an engine or whatever you're calling it. Locomotive. Whatever you wish, but we cannot steal it. What would Mr. Holmes say? He'd say, why is it taking you lot so bloomin' long to rescue my friend? That's what he'd say. Desperate times call for desperate measures. But, but Ben, we'll end up in Fleet, right along with our kidnappers. And that's the end of Badger and Watson Detecting Agency for certain. It's over if we don't do it. Now, are you with me or not? He looked helplessly towards Miss Littleton, who obligingly shrugged. I think we're in a world of trouble, Badger insisted. Ben didn't have time for Badger's whinging. Slowly he raised his head and peered over the side of the cab. None of the workmen were lingering near them, so he climbed out on the left side away from the platform and walked quickly to the back of the tender with its generous pile of coal within. Trying to keep his boots as silent as possible, they crunched away over the ballast amid the sleepers. He situated himself between the tender and the cars, carefully lifted the 3 heavy chain links from the hook at the back of the tender between the buffers, and, with barely a screech of metal on metal, as gently and as quietly as he could, lowered the heavy chain with a slight clanking sound to the ballast. He ran back and ducked inside the cab again. Forgive me for asking the obvious, said Miss Littleton quietly, but do you know how to work a locomotive? Course I do, said Ben. I was a fireman for a few months. That's the man that feeds the firebox. I watched all the workings of the driver and figured it out. Tim, it's you that needs to be the fireman this time while I serve as the driver. Ben, I don't know what to do. All you do is take that shovel and shovel that coal into that firebox there. He pointed to the heavy iron door with the glow of coals within it. When I tell you to. Oh, I could do that. That's a good lad. It's a good thing this engine has been working all day, he mused. It would have been impossible to hurry the heating of the water in the boiler, or even to get the firebox hot enough without hours of work. All right, Tim, now listen up. You'd better take off your coat, because it's going to be hot work, and dirty too. You can't just throw coal in any which way. You've got to get it stoked, but quick, since it's had a chance to cool a bit. Here's what you do. You need to cover the back and sides to make it burn the way it needs to. Get me? Back and sides. Yes, Ben. All right. Start shoveling, and when it gets hot enough, we'll be able to be on our way. What if there isn't enough water in the boiler? He stared at the woman with incredulity. For a woman, she seemed to make it her business to know about all manner of things. We'll just have to hope for the best. We'll have to hope a lot of things. Start shoveling, Tim. Badger unbuttoned his coat and peeled it off, muttering to himself the whole time, and handed the coat and his hat to the woman. He grabbed the shovel, dug it deep into the pile of coal at the back of the cab, and as soon as Ben shoved open the door to the firebox with his foot, Badger tossed it as far back as he could. That's it, murmured Ben. Now put another in the back, and then take turns putting it on either side and the back again. Badger wiped his sweaty forehead with the sleeve of his shirt, getting it dirty with coal dust. How's the fire looking, Ben? He's proceeding well. He checked the glass gauge. Miss Littleton, keep a watch to make sure no one has spotted us yet, but don't let yourself be seen. She saluted and crept to the edge of the cab's opening and slowly lifted her head to peer along the tracks. So far, all is clear, she said over her shoulder. She still clutched Badger's coat and hat close to her chest without even realizing it. Badger continued to shovel in the coal, and the cab itself was warming nicely. Too bad the driver had removed the kettle for tea from the shelf above the firebox, thought Ben. He could have used a cuppa about now. Mr. Watson, Miss Littleton was still spying over the edge of the cab, making as little profile as possible. I see some gentlemen, making their way towards us from the far end of the platform. He checked the gauges once more and decided, "That's all cue to go." Praying that the firebox was hot enough, he wound the reverser forward and kicked closed the firebox. The locomotive lurched forward. "The men are walking quickly now," warned Miss Littleton. A little air for the firebox, a little teasing the reverser forward, and the engine started to move with more speed. Ben looked down out of the window to the drive rod, and it was steadily picking up momentum, pushing the large drive wheels, and as they turned, the engine chugged and puffed. The locomotive slowly cleared the platform, and Miss Littleton informed him that the men were running now. He couldn't resist reaching up and blowing the whistle. Through the noise in the cab, it was impossible to hear any shouting, but he imagined what the workers would be saying about now, and it was not fitting for Miss Littleton's ears. And then it was her that shouted a rather offensive word. "Mr. Watson," she added. He could see hands grasping the side of the window. One of the workmen had obviously leapt onto the side of the engine. "Stop this engine!" he shouted over the chugging and puffing of the trucks beneath them. He brought his mustachioed head up over the side and glared at each of them. "What the rotty hell do you think you are doing?" Ben froze, trying to decide what to do, when Miss Littleton grabbed a metal cup used for tea and hammered on the man's fingers. He yowled, and one hand suddenly fell away. The man swore, saying some very ungentlemanly things towards Miss Littleton. She hammered more on the remaining hand, and it just as suddenly disappeared. "I am terribly sorry," she shouted after him. Banjer leaned out the window next to Miss Littleton with as shocked a face as Ben had ever seen him wear. He turned back towards Ben. "He's all right. Just took a tumble, but he got back up." "He shouldn't have said those things to you, miss." "Well, it can certainly be excused. We are trying to steal his train, after all, and I did hurt his fingers. It's still no excuse for that ungentlemanly behavior. Tim, keep shoveling." So that's kind of an exciting part. I loved writing that. That was neat. Are there any questions from the two of you, I guess? Let me see what we got here. Let's go back. You like English phone booths? I do too. My mother-in-law had one once up in their house in the mountains. My father-in-law bought it for her for a present, and I wanted to take it with me when they sold the place, but they sold it with it. Now, they're really expensive. Didn't know about the candle. Yep, that's how they told time for a little while. Yes, grandfather clock said to pull the weights every 6 days or so makes the clock run. And also the pendulum. That move makes the pendulum turn, and the pendulum is the escapement that moves the gears. See all the things you have to look up when you're writing something and then you want to talk about. It's crazy. Yeah, they had to pay to go to work. They had to pay to get a ride to go to work. So isn't that stinky? Yes. Yeah, is that the only question you got wrong, Laura? Was question one? Let's see. You got here late, but you're here at last. Okay, so we're doing questions here. Yep, that's it. The pendulum. So you have no questions? No questions for me? I got the one wrong about the inspectors. Yeah. If you don't read all the stories, you don't hear about all the inspectors. The movies pick Lestrade because he was in the most of them. But if you watch the Jeremy Brett version, then yes, you will be introduced to all the other Scotland Yard inspectors. That's not to mention all the other police inspectors and constables that Holmes had to deal with in various instances when they're doing their investigations. And they got to go outside of London all the time. So that's why I wanted to take them out of London for this one, and for the next one. But we'll spend a lot of time in London. London kind of becomes another character, so we don't want to miss that. We like to keep them in London, but we like to have options. It creates more story ideas. So you asked a question about Big Ben, and what was that question? See if I have that farther up back there. I'll just have to ask it again. Big Ben is the bell, of course, not the clock. It's a Big Ben's tower for the bell, not the clock. And the clock is, and you can hear that all over London, and even almost all over London. And it, I think the only time they let it go dark was during World War II, because, they were bombing London, and they don't want them to bomb the clock. But, so if you have a question that you can ask again before I give away the next giveaway, which is this badger. This is not a tin badger, but it's a Sherlockian badger. So it's hollow. It could be a finger puppet. Now, well, the clock is in the tower, but Big Ben is the bell. One of the bells, chimes. Yeah, they're bells. I think it's the deep one. Westminster chimes. I wonder if I think that may be where that came from. I don't know. Do 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 do. It's the Westminster chimes. Anyway, so if you want to win the badger, the Sherlockian badger, ask for that when you're emailing me, jerrywesterson@gmail.com. If a clock, did it use gears or steam when new? I'm not sure about that, but I think it's just weights and winding spring. I don't think it's... It may have had steam, I don't know, but that's an interesting idea and an interesting question. I'd have to look that up, and I will look that up later, because now I'm interested in that answer. So see what happens when you ask questions. It just creates more questions. He is very cute, the little guy. I have another event next week at the Book Jewel, and I'm giving away another one. I think I've given all of those away, and I have to paint some more for whenever. So, have we done it? I think we've done it. We are 2 minutes away, and if you don't have any questions, are there any questions that I can think of to answer? I'm not sure. Like your emojis, those are cute. A reminder to people that will come later to see this. This is obviously being recorded, and you can watch it all later. And how foolish I look and sound when I'm trying to talk and I have no voice. So that's what happens when you get old. I don't know. So yes, thank you too for coming. There might be lurkers that I don't know about. I will find out later when it tells me how many people have been here. But that was it. I have an in-person event next Saturday and another on Monday. If you live in the Inland Empire, I will be at the Canyon Lake Library for a little coffee with the author. Or tea, depending on what you like. How many books am I planning in this series? I haven't planned all of them. I don't know if it's going to have an ending or just stop. But right now, the next one is called the Magician's Misadventure, after The Vampire Client. So The Vampire Client will be out in May of 2026. And The Magician's Misadventure will be out in May of 2027. And that one about the magician is a magician performing on stage at the Canterbury Theatre. He is doing the sword and the basket trick. and something terrible happens. And that's a good thing Tim is in the audience because he leaps on the stage to help. Okay, but I got more planned, so we will continue with that. And I thank you all for coming. And let's see who won. Who won what? Thanks. Bye now.